Here's a question for the room. What's the most covered song you can think of? I mean live, recorded, whatever. A lot of you might say the obvious ones. Freebird, Footloose, The Middle. I'm gonna argue for one that's less boomer coded and more art school coded. Fade Into You by Mazzy Star. This song needs no introduction. I'm not gonna be a contrarian and give some overly specific reason why I don't like it. Fade Into You is a great song, but I don't go out of my way to listen to it all the time. It's one of those songs you gotta save for the right occasion. It's not a song you play every day in the shower and sing out of key to. That lessens its value. The problem is, you do hear it all the time, whether you like it or not. Not only is this a popular song, it's probably the only song a lot of people know by Mazzy Star, even if they base their whole aesthetic around this song. It's like the people who love Jeff Buckley but only listen to Lover, You Shoulda Come Over. But Fade Into You is also a song you hear everyone cover. I've already talked about covers of this song before, specifically in cover songs I like less than the original, which is fitting because that's also the case for all the other covers I heard of this song. I'm not gatekeeping and saying no one's allowed to cover this song. No song is above being covered. You just gotta be good enough to cover the song. Like, for example, you gotta be an exceptional guitarist to cover Steely Dan. You don't gotta be an expert, but since a lot of Steely Dan has weird chord progressions and technical riffs, knowing some music theory or guitar modes certainly helps. And that goes for Fade Into You, of course, but I think part of the reason why this song is covered so much is because of how beginner-friendly it is. It's at a slow tempo, a simple structure, and it's basically the same 3 chords the whole time.
Literally, it's just A, E, B minor. So when you play it together, it sounds like...
It's not bad for a song to be beginner-friendly. It's an easy avenue for people to start learning music. But another reason why so many people flock to this song is because it has such a distinct mood. To give my interpretation, this song sounds like when something really bad happens to you and you know things will get better eventually, but there's no way to speed up that process, so for the time being, you just gotta wallow in that sadness. So naturally, a song like that's gonna be on tons of people's sad music playlists. So when you factor that and the beginner-friendly isms, you got a song that's ripe for naive musicians to cover. Because in a lot of ways, this is a futile song to cover. That's a very supervillain word to use, I know. Fade Into You is such a distinct and easily accessible song, a lot of covers end up sounding exactly like the original. You know, maybe they'll have an extra guitar part or harmonies, but most of them sound like karaoke with a new singer. This one by Inhaler does some cool panning shit, but it's basically the exact same.
A stranger's heart comes on slowly.
Sponge's cover sounds like a dad rock tribute. Their singer goes full Eddie Vedder mode in the chorus. And of course, we got the obligatory Triple J cover by the Rubens. I'm gonna make a whole ass video about Triple J someday, because their covers range from surprisingly amazing to barely average. And this seems like a competent band, but again, it sounds almost the exact same as the original. Like, besides the new singers and being slightly faster, what makes this distinguishably the Rubens cover of Fade Into You?
You come apart, you go.
I've talked about this in multiple videos, but the unspoken law with covering a song is to make it your own. It doesn't need to reinvent the wheel, but it should still have some of your essence, your mannerisms as a musician. And I found some covers that do this to varying degrees. The version by Muzz has the drum beat in double time, while the rest of the band stays around the original's tempo. It makes this cover sound faster, even though it's not really.
Colors your eyes, but what's not there?
Gregory Alan Isakov made a cover recently. That's what inspired this video, as a matter of fact. And I want to clear the air. I like a lot of this guy's stuff. I even saw him live 2 years ago. But I've definitely grown out of that whole granola core folk-ass music a lot. And sometimes it reminds me of less desirable people. But still, this Empty Northern Hemisphere is a great album, so I'll stop being mean. This cover's alright, but I feel it would have worked way better as its own original song. I know I should be happy this one does its own thing, but I feel like because it's gotta adhere to being a Fade Into You cover, it's not as fully realized as it can be. So it's stuck in this weird middle ground of being a half thought out song and a rendition of a song you've heard a million times. And this is especially the case with American Football's cover. This is the one I talked about in the covers I like less video, which is sad because I do like American Football. Not in a red flag way, just enough before it becomes a problem. And out of all the renditions of Fade Into You I've heard, this one's definitely the most unique. If it was an original song with less Fade Into You-isms, like a faster tempo and not being a waltz, that'd be great. But it tacks all these onto the song and it makes it so boring and drawn out. Like, why does this gotta be 7 minutes, dog? And that's the thing, even when covers have their own ideas, they still need to replicate every other aspect of the original so it doesn't sound too different. This one by Mallrats neat because they use electric guitar instead of acoustic, but it's still just as slow and nothing changes after the first chorus. I was expecting keys, more guitar, harmonies, but there was nothing. And a lot of these hyperfixate on using the exact same chords even if they'd really benefit from adding more. Remember how I said Fade Into You is basically 3 chords the whole time? That works with the original because of how much space it gives the other instruments and vocals. It never sounds repetitive even though it is inherently repetitive. But it does get repetitive in the Moth and the Flames cover. The guitar does a root third pattern with the chords, so it's a lot more rhythmic and busy. But because it's still just the same 3 chords over and over again in more rapid succession too, it gets so boring.
I want to take a breath that's true.
And it doesn't stop there. Most of these covers were the ones I found on Spotify by established artists. Now, you may know some of these guys, you may not, but now there's also all the versions by smaller and independent artists. Dude, when I was finding the covers for this video, I thought I did a pretty good job at finding 10, 11 of them. But then I see Mr. Bob Mikowski over here with 50 of these little shits on his covers playlist. And I know this isn't including all the other ones on platforms like YouTube, Bandcamp, SoundCloud, but most of these were from artists with way smaller following, so I'm not gonna be harsh on these guys because that's mean. In fact, here's some I liked. Maiko's is really good. The melody is played on a kind of Mort Garson-y synthesizer. Sarah Rachel's version sounds very big, and the tambourine in the chorus is a nice touch. Chloe Foy's version fills way more space with the guitar. Instead of being drawn out chords, they're doing a dancier fingerstyle pattern to really emphasize the waltziness. You live your life, you go in shadow. But at the end of the day, most of these still sound like the original with a few small changes. If so many of these borrow so many cues from the original, that begs the question, why wouldn't I just listen to the original? People have argued about that with covers for eons, even if they put a completely new spin on the song. But in those cases, it's good to look at covers as interpretations of the original song. You know, it's not trying to be the superior version, well maybe some are, but usually they're made out of love and respect. Fade Into You covers are still made with love and respect, I'm sure, but they don't feel like interpretations, they feel like imitations. That's why I call them futile covers. The original has such a distinct and strong mood, none of these covers want to mess with it because they think it's integral to the song. It's important, sure, but covers can invoke completely different feelings than the original. You ever heard Tori Amos's cover of Smells Like Teen Spirit?
With the lights out, it's less dangerous here.
But that begs the question, why do so many people cover Fade Into You if it's futile? I don't know, they probably just really like the song. I can't take that from them. I don't want to discourage anyone from covering this song. If it means that much for you to dedicate time into learning and practicing the chords, lyrics, more power to you. But remember to make the cover your own. Put your own spin on it. Change the tempo, the key, the time signature. Music is an incredibly malleable art. It's meant to change based on who's behind the wheel. And that doesn't just apply to Fade Into You. Any song you cover should be an opportunity to put your own take on it. Like imagine you're writing it for the very first time. But that should especially be the case if you ever cover Fade Into You by Mazzy Star. That's all I got to say on this matter. Let me know your thoughts in the comments and any other futile or underwhelming covers y'all can think of. Also tell me your favorite Mazzy Star song that isn't Fade Into You. Mine's either 5-String Serenade or Look Down from the Bridge. Shoutouts of course to my patrons, and next time for reals, we'll talk about double albums. So see you then.